Hello everybody, Anthony from Grandstand Sports Data here, and today's video will be the 2022 NFL midterm grades and analysis. So I will be putting on my professor hat and giving each of the qualified quarterbacks a grade based on a statistical based model. So without further ado, let's get into it. So before we get into the specific statistics, how did we find these stats? Well, we ran a correlation test between all quarterback stats compared to win percentage, and that was for the last 10 years. And these stats proved to be the highest correlated or related to wins. In other words, these stats have told the most accurate story on whether you're a winning or a losing quarterback. So, for the first stat, completion percentage. It's percentage of all passes completed. Next one would be touchdown percentage, and this is the percentage of touchdowns thrown per attempt. Next, you got interception percentage, which is the percentage of interceptions thrown per attempt. The next two are going to be rating, and that's going to be your typical passer rating, which is calculated using a player's attempts, completions, yards, touchdowns, and interceptions. Now, some of you can look up that equation, which you can find almost anywhere, I think even including Wikipedia, and that will give you, so we based it on, there's two different ones that you can use. You can use the NFL version, which we obviously use in this one, and then there's also a college version. The next rating statistic is the QBR, which is on ESPN, and they have their own total QBR rating statistic. Next is sack percentage, and this is the percentage of time sacked per attempt, and as you can tell, this is probably a negative statistic or a statistic that negatively affects the quarterback, along with interception percentage and so on and so forth. The next would be adjusted net yards per attempt. This is a weighted equation factoring in passing yards, sack yards, passing touchdowns, and passing interceptions. Next will also be a negative statistic, and this is drop percentage. This is the percentage of passes dropped per attempt. This does not include spikes, and it does not include throwaways. You have your bad throw percentage, which is the percentage of poor throws per attempt. This does not include spikes or throwaways as well. And then we have on target percentage, which is the percentage of on target throws per attempt. This does not include spikes or throwaways. And finally, you have another negative statistic, which is the pressure percentage, which is the percentage of pressured per dropbacks. Finally, we have the win percentage, and this is the target variable, as we would call it in the statistical world. It's the projected win percentage based on the weights from the above stats. So we ran what's called a regression analysis with these stats, with the above stats, for the last 10 years, and it automatically assigns weights to these stats in order to find out what the projected win percentage would be for that quarterback on a stock team. And when we say stock team, you could just say middle of the road, 16th ranked team, 16th ranked at every position, what this quarterback has produced would tell the story. So in other words, if, say, a quarterback, he has a win percentage of 800 in this model, it means that with that average football team, he would win 80% of his football games. So he's doing pretty well. He's doing better than well. He's doing great. So let's get started. So here you're going to see who got left out of this basically report card for each of the qualified quarterbacks. And when we say qualified quarterbacks, this is what we mean. This is the non-qualified quarterbacks because they didn't meet that 125 pass attempts. So as you can see, you would see Jameis Winston with a D-. You will see Bailey Zappi with a C, Taylor Heinicke with the C, PJ Walker with a D, and Dak Prescott with a B-. Now the reason why I selected these guys in terms of they barely missed the cut is because if they played one more football game, they most likely would have reached that 125 pass attempt threshold. As you can see from the above stats, we have the statistics that I presented just a minute ago. Also below that, we have the ranks and where they would fall in the NFL. It's color-coded from blue all the way to red. Blue is specifying that it's bad and it's ice cold. That's how we like to do it. Some people do the opposite. So as you would walk up the ladder, you would see blue, green, yellow. So yellow would be that mid-tier that, ranked 14, 15, 16, around that range. Then you would see it gradually go to orange, and then finally to red, which means you're scorching hot and you're first, second, third, fourth, fifth in the NFL. So as you can just see, I'll just walk through the color codes instead of the actual statistics. When I'm talking about these quarterbacks, Jameis Winston does not look too hot. If you just skip all the way to the right side to the win percentage, it's actually be 29th in the NFL in terms of the win percentage, which is our target variable. Bailey Zappi would sit at 18th, even though he has quite a few red statistical categories, which would be, eye-opening, to say the least. I mean, he's number 1 in pressure, so he's the most protected quarterback when he plays. That's pretty good. And then he would be second in the NFL if he was qualified in completion percentage with 70.7, which is actually pretty impressive. Taylor Heinicke would have sat 18th in the NFL along with Bailey Zappi with his win percent. Well, I have to put a little footnote next to that. When I put these projected ranks, so when I put the projected rank for Jameis Winston, it's assuming that also these guys were left out. So Jameis Winston's inserted, but Bailey Zappi, Taylor Heinicke, all the way down are left out. So that one quarterback is inserted into the quarterback pool. So you might see the same statistics in terms of ranks, and that's basically how we did it. If you go down to P.J. Walker, not exactly the best quarterback. He's actually been well protected, though. So based on the statistical model, doesn't like him. But in terms of the eyeball test, has been pretty good. I'd also like to put in another factor, is that these are through week 10. So any week 11 statistics do not apply to this. We stopped at week 10. And this is what we have. So this will not include P.J. Walker's Thursday Night Football game. Dak Prescott sitting at a B-, and he would be close to 500. And remember, this is with a stock NFL team, this projection. So you take that stock NFL team, that would probably finish 8-9, 9-8. And according to Dak Prescott's numbers, he would just take them to about where they are, and that's 500. So how about we get into the real report card and into the class of 34 NFL quarterbacks. So with my professor hat, just from down working up, the worst ranked quarterback in the NFL so far has been Russell Wilson. He's gotten a failing grade. He's been almost dead last in almost every every quarterback statistical category here. He's actually been poor in terms of everything except interceptions. He's been middle of the road. Adjusted net yards per attempt, he's actually not been that bad. He's been middle of the road. His bad throw percentage has been, decent, but it's still not good enough. And he's not getting guys in. He's middle of the road in terms of on target. So when you're middle of the road in those statistical categories, and then you're almost dead last in the other areas, it's not going to give you a good win percentage. Sitting at 34th. Mac Jones would come in next at 33, which I think has been one of the worst quarterbacks. Some of the interesting stats that popped out to me was that the drop percentage, which means that the New England Patriots wide receivers are actually not dropping the football for him. They're actually catching the football. So the next statistic, which is the bad throw percentage, is also another indicator to me that he's actually been throwing the ball pretty well. Well, he hasn't been getting it on target, as you can see, but he's also not throwing bad balls. So he's keeping it in the vicinity. He just hasn't been producing. And just from the eyeball test, I think that he has been the worst quarterback of the NFL. I think Russell Wilson has showed flashes, whereas Mac Jones has showed nothing. So going on to the next one, which would be Zach Wilson. He would be sitting 32nd in the NFL. He is poor across the board as well. He's only showing little glimmers of hope in terms of sack percentage, which means that he's being protected in terms of he's still seeing pressure because he's 27th in the NFL in that. But he's seeing pressure, but he's not being sacked. So it's a good thing. I guess if you're looking at a positive in that area, that's one that you can see. He hasn't been throwing the ball well. He's got one of the worst. He's got the worst bad percentage stat in the business, and none of his balls are going on target as he sits in probably the lower quartile at 29th. Going on next would be Ryan Tannehill. Bit of a surprise. I want to say about 3 years ago he was actually had the highest passer rating in the NFL. To now he's actually not looking too well. He's being the most pressured quarterback in the NFL, but not the most sacked. So he's seeing a lot of heat. With seeing a lot of heat, he's almost top 10 in terms of on target and top 10 in terms of bad throws. So he doesn't have many bad balls, and they all get on target or close to it. His rating is still 10th in the NFL, top 10 in the NFL. I'm just thinking that the stat doesn't like him in terms of the pressure and in terms of, you know, the drops. His team drops a lot of footballs. So combining the drop, and I'm going to tell you that AJ Brown has made a huge difference when it comes to drop percentage from Tennessee over to Philadelphia. When you see in the future, in later on in the presentation, you're going to see the difference when you see the Philadelphia quarterback numbers. And it's turned out to be a huge difference. So that would be Ryan Tannehill sitting at 31, and these would be failing grade quarterbacks. Next would be your D- and needs improvement quarterbacks. Sitting in at 30th would be Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett gets that D-. He has not had a good touchdown percentage, not had a good interception percentage, one of the worst passer ratings, and very low-end QBR. His wide receivers do not drop the football, so as long as he gets it there, they should be able to make the catch. And he's not that much pressured, even though, he's not that much pressured. He doesn't get the ball on target enough for not seeing. So if you don't see much pressure, you're one of the most protected quarterbacks in the NFL. You should be getting the ball to your receivers. And he's 22nd in the league in terms of on-target percentage. That is a red flag for me. If you are a protected quarterback and you're not able to get that ball to your receivers, something wrong there. Something wrong there. A negative thing there for the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback. Coming in at number 29 would be Baker Mayfield. And thank God for this analysis, because I don't even remember Baker on the field, and I didn't even know he threw it over 150 times. But he has been putrid. His completion percentage ranks worse in the NFL. He has one of the worst passer ratings in the NFL. And he has the worst QBR in the NFL. None of his balls go on target as he sits as second to last. And he's actually not been pressured that much, as you can see. Top 10 in terms of pressure. So he's actually been well protected. So Baker hasn't been that well this year. Matt Ryan comes in next at 28. Matt Ryan's actually been, I'm not going to say okay. I mean, he's actually had his ups and downs. His rating of having 3% touchdowns, 3% touchdown percentage and a 3% interception rate. You can't have that equal. You have to have more touchdowns than interceptions to be regarded as a good quarterback. So when you're sitting low like that in those statistical categories, it's not going to be good for you. But his receivers are catching the ball, as you can see, top 3 in the NFL. His bad throw percentage is actually down, so he's actually been placing the ball pretty well. And he's actually been on target, sitting top 10. So Matt Ryan's been okay. I guess you could say okay. But the pressure has been there. He's been getting sacked a lot. And it's showing you that when he gets pressured and when he gets sacked, he's not the same quarterback as that MVP season. So he's sitting at a D- or needs improvement. We had no quarterbacks that sat in the D range. So, insert your joke wherever with the D reference. But here are the quarterbacks with the D plus. You can see here Matt Stafford comes in at 27th. He's got the D plus. He has the needs improvement. And most of this is coming from pressure. His wide receivers, as you can see, the drop percentage are top 5 in the NFL. So they're catching the football when he gets it there. So you can say what you want about Allen Robinson. You can say what you want about Cooper Kupp. and the rest of his weapons. But when the ball gets there, they're catching it. It's just he's being pressured a lot. He's being pressured a lot, 26th in the NFL in terms of pressure. Sack percentage, 29th in the NFL, so he's getting hit a lot, and he's getting hit a lot while he's hurt. His touchdown percentage is the same as his interception percentage, 2.8 versus 2.8, which is never good. You never want a 1-to-1 interception ratio. His completion percentage has not been bad. It's been top 5 in the NFL, but he still gets that needs improvement. He hasn't been good at all. Jacoby Brissett comes in at 26th. Jacoby's been pretty, middle of the road in a lot of these areas. I think most of his downfall has come recently, as in the beginning of the year, dare I say, he was tearing it up. He actually has the worst drop percentage in the NFL, which means that when he gets the ball to his wide receivers, he really can't trust them. They're dropping a lot of footballs, and they're not really doing the best that they can for their quarterback. He actually sits 7th in terms of QBR, so ESPN stat favors Jacoby a lot. He's middle of the road in terms of getting sacked, and he's middle of the road in terms of bad percentage throws, on-target throws, and pressure. So I guess you could say from these stats he's middle of the road, but him not throwing enough touchdowns and his team not catching enough balls is negatively affecting him in his rating and also on his report card. So here we go. Next one, number 25, would be Joe Flacco. And Joe Flacco, he had that one game where he went crazy, so this might have boosted him, but he's 31st in the NFL in terms of completion percentage, which obviously isn't good. He's middle in the road in terms of interception percentage, which is good. He can slightly protect the football. And he's 23rd in the league in terms of touchdown percentage. He hasn't been sacked, so he hasn't been touched, but as you can see from pressure, he's been pressured. But he's sitting low in some of these key statistics like on-target percentage. He's not getting it to his receivers. And also bad throw percentage. A lot of bad throws. Not enough on target. That's a recipe for disaster. And then along with having the most drops. Most drops in terms of all qualified quarterbacks. So that's why he's sitting at the D+ range. So here are some of the quarterbacks that are coming into that middle of the range. C-, not a bad grade, but can still have work, can still do better. Sitting at 24th in terms of the NFL ranking, it's Davis Mills. Actually hasn't been bad. I say that this guy is probably the best to come out of that class, with Mac Jones and Fields, and it's just, I think it's where he is. He's in Houston. Now, if he was in New England, they'd probably be winning football games. If he was in Chicago, they'd be winning more football games. Just my take on it, but I think that individually he has been one of the better quarterbacks. As you can see, his wide receivers are actually catching the ball for him, top 10 in terms of the NFL. He actually does not have a bad touchdown percentage. He's middle of the road, but he has to work on the interceptions. He's been throwing some bad balls, which are leading to interceptions, but he's also been pressured. When looking at these statistics, and you see on target and bad throws and interceptions, I always like to go to the pressure percentage, because if a quarterback is being well protected and he still has bad throws and not a lot on target, that's a huge red flag, like you've seen with Kenny Pickett. So you're telling me that we're giving you the time to throw the ball, but it's still not getting there. Huge red flag. Huge red flag. That's not the case here with Davis Mills. You can see the pressure has always been there. It's forcing him to speed up his progressions. His sack percentage is 21st in the NFL, so they're actually getting to him as well, the opposition, which is not leading to a good grade for Davis. It's barely passing. So next would be Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones, just from the eyeball test, what I thought would have done a little bit better here, but based on these statistics, they really don't agree with me. I mean, he's being pressured a lot, almost last in the NFL in terms of the qualified quarterbacks. He is getting the ball on target though, and he's not throwing the ball in bad areas for his wide receivers, which is always good. He is being sacked almost among the highest, but he's keeping those interceptions low, which I think is producing wins for the Giants. Not many touchdowns, but those interceptions low. That's always a recipe for wins. Coming in next is number 22 is Justin Fields. I don't agree with this. He's been playing well lately, but it's mostly been on his feet. I would say that you could see a lot of blue here in some of the most important areas. He's being pressured almost the highest in the NFL. He's not throwing the ball on target, and his bad throws are abysmal. He's being sacked the most in terms of all the qualified statistical quarterbacks. His completion percentage is 30th in the NFL, and he's thrown a high percentage of interceptions. He also is bringing it back up with some of those touchdowns, though, so he's making it up for points on the board. This is the classic. If you have that teacher call the kids individually. This is your midterm grade. This is where I want you to improve. If I'm having the professor hat, we have to minimize the turnovers. We minimize the turnovers with you, Justin. You will have a B or an A next semester. Mitchell Trubisky sitting in at a C-. Mitchell 21st in the NFL. He's been not pressured at all, so that Pittsburgh offensive line has actually been holding up pretty well. But it's not translating for him. When he was out there, he's been almost dead last in terms of touchdown percentage. He's lower quartile when it comes to completion percentage, and he's actually protected the football. So this is what I'm trying to say about Pittsburgh quarterbacks. I just don't think they have the right guy yet. Now, could Pickett be that guy? Yeah, maybe. But when you are being protected and you're 27th in the NFL in terms of on-target percentage and 23rd in the NFL in terms of bad throw percentage, that's not good. It's just showing you that you're well protected, you have all the time in the world, and you're not producing. That's saying you're not a good quarterback. Coming in at C, some names here that are eye-popping to you, but Kyler Murray coming in at 20th in the NFL. He's actually had a very low bad percentage throw, so most of his throws are getting there. As you can see, 8th in the NFL in terms of on target. Doing well in terms of completion percentage. Doing well in terms of not turning the ball over. He's just not finishing, it looks like. Not finishing with the touchdown percentage. And his QBR, passer rating, in the 20s is not good at all. Well, I shouldn't say not good at all, but needs improvement in terms of Kyler Murray and his name. But that's got him in the C category, or the C graded report. Carson Wentz, a lot of bad things I'm seeing here. You see a lot of light blue across the screen in terms of the ranks, so I'm not too sure what they like. I'm thinking that it's the touchdown percentage. That touchdown percentage probably has a higher weight just by looking at this. His receivers in the middle of the road in terms of catching the football. He's putrid in all the other statistical categories. But then the touchdown percentage pops out at you. So that's telling you right there. If you have a high touchdown percentage, even if you have mistakes, you're still going to be a winning quarterback because you're producing those 6 points. Next coming in is Aaron Rodgers at 18th. It's probably one of the few times you've ever seen Aaron Rodgers sitting at middle of the road quarterback, him getting a C. This is definitely that child that comes up to the front of the class and you're having that individual meeting with him and you're saying, Aaron, you have so much potential. You're better than this. This is that classic talk or conversation we would have with Aaron. He's actually been on target, sitting at 4th in the NFL, so he's getting the ball there. You don't want to do this, but the drop percentage with his wide receivers, he probably doesn't have the weapons that he would like. They're not catching the football like they should. That's what this is telling me. I know some people, come on, Aaron hasn't been the same. And I agree, he hasn't been the same Aaron, but you have to attribute that to also his receivers. You can't be 29th in the NFL for your receivers not catching the football for you. It's not a recipe to win games. So here are the C+ quarterbacks. Coming in at 17th is actually Cooper Rush. Cooper Rush doing his job at keeping the Dallas Cowboys involved in playoff hopes in terms of beginning of the year. They're well off in terms of that now. But he actually was sitting 32nd in terms of completion percentage, so he wasn't really completing a lot of balls, didn't have a high passer rating. He actually threw the ball bad and wasn't really on target, but he protected the football. He protected the football. He had a good QBR in terms of ESPN, and he was well protected with the sack percentage. So Cooper Rush, he basically did his job, and that was good. Coming in at 16th, C plus for Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo, he sits top 10 in terms of completion percentage, touchdown percentage, passer rating, adjusted net yards per attempt, bad percentage throws, which means he's not throwing the ball bad, and pressure, so he's being well protected. I think he's like a middle of the road quarterback, and in the scheme that he's in is pretty good. It's well off for him. He actually sits almost dead last in terms of drop percentage, so his wide receivers aren't doing additional work for him. They're actually being negatively affecting him. So if those wide receivers can catch more footballs, you might be seeing more production from Jimmy Garoppolo, which is it's really something to look at. C plus for Kirk Cousins. I think Kirk Cousins should be a little bit, if he could have moved up in terms of a B or an A, you're looking at a dangerous football team in Minnesota. So he came top 10 in terms of sack percentage, so he's being protected. Well, he's still being pressured, one of the highest in the NFL. It's just that they're not getting him to the ground. His wide receivers obviously are not dropping the football as they're top 10 in the NFL with Jefferson, Thielen, you know the rest. On target percentage, he's actually throwing the ball and putting it on target, which is good for Kirk Cousins. But he sits middle of the road in almost every other statistical category, and that's basically what Kirk Cousins is. Coming next would be Marcus Mariota. This is actually a little bit of a surprise to me. His wide receivers are not dropping the football, but he is not very accurate. He's not throwing the football well in terms of the bad percentage. He's almost, he's in that last quartile, and he's also in that last quartile in terms of on-target percentage. He's middle of the road in terms of pressure, so he is being able to, he's having the proper time, but he is being dropped to the floor. So what that's telling me, just seeing those stats, is that he's holding on to the ball a tad too long. He actually almost worse in the NFL in terms of interception percentage, and not too great in terms of completion percentage. But that's Marcus Mariota coming in as your last C plus on the report card. Here we go with the B minuses. And Tommy, terrific, sitting at a B minus 13th in the NFL. When was the last time you seen that? Tommy and Aaron, probably you would say having down years. But as you can see, Tom has had the best pressure in the NFL, so he hasn't been pressured. Everyone talks about how that offensive line is not the greatest. I would say that also factors in that Tom has an early release. He releases the ball earlier than a lot of NFL quarterbacks, so you won't see that pressure percentage. He hasn't been sacked. He sits second in the NFL in that, and also he's protected the football, still being ranked first in the NFL in terms of interception percentage. I think what you're seeing here is just a lack of red zone threat. He doesn't have Rob Gronkowski. Julio Jones has proven not to be the Julio Jones of old. And all these statistics have showed this is Tom Brady, but there's no finishing. There's no finishing here. So he's the classic, kid that does all his homework, does all his, does everything he has to do, has A's across the board, and then when it comes to test time, does not do well on the test. So next is Trevor Lawrence, coming in at 12th in the NFL with the B minus. He has not been bad at all. He's been about middle of the road, as you can see from all the statistical categories. He's actually been protected in terms of not falling his ass on the ground in terms of sacks. Hasn't been pressured much. His receivers could do a little bit better as they're dropping footballs, 25th in the NFL. But it hasn't been a bad year for Trevor Lawrence, and he actually has a system and a real coach, which is actually beneficial to him. Next, B minus for Jalen Hurts. He sits 11th. This is probably where people, their shorts fly off of their ass and they start getting crazy, because Jalen Hurts I think people will say that he has not been the 11th best quarterback in the NFL. He's been more. Well, from here, it shows you that he's top 2 in terms of interception percentage, passer rating in the NFL, adjusted net yards. He's sitting the top, he's top 3 in terms of putting the ball on target to his receivers. His receivers are catching the ball. Remember how I said notice the difference between the Tennessee Titans bad percentage rating and the Philadelphia Eagles bad percentage. It's solely on A.J. Brown. It's solely on him. Solely on him. So he has been getting sacked a lot. I just think that the model doesn't like the fact that he gets hit. It's taken him a tick down. He should be in A- land, but because he gets hit, the model doesn't like that. I would agree slightly. I think that so the model probably presumes that the more he gets hit, the more his numbers will go down. I presume that the more he gets hit, the more likely he is to get injured and not play, and that's worse. So that's where I would agree with the model. I don't agree with the B minus. I think that he should be at the worst a B plus, even in the A range. But now we're going to crack into our top 10 quarterbacks. Coming in at number 10 would be Jared Goff. Now, this I would say from the eyeball test, most of these statistics have to be garbage time. They have to, and that's what the model cannot read. The model just reads the final statistics, no matter when they happen. So remember, not all models are accurate. They show that they're accurate in terms of when you see the result of the regression analysis. Like you run the 10 years and the numbers are the numbers. But projecting future success, it's not always accurate. You have to remember that. And Jared Goff here, I don't think is the 10th best NFL quarterback. His team drops the football a lot. He doesn't get the ball on target a lot, as you can see, a high bad percentage. He's doing well in terms of top 10 for that touchdown percentage, and he's got a high passer rating. He doesn't get sacked much, and he's middle of the road in terms of pressure. So it translates to that top 10 in the NFL. Next would be Derek Carr. He's sitting at a B. He would be 9th in the NFL. He does have one of the highest in terms of bad percentage throws, which that's not great. His wide receivers don't drop much balls. He has a high QBR, and he protects the football. So him sitting middle of the road in those categories is really important. But if you were giving me the eyeball test, I would think that Derek Carr would be, he'd be with Jared Goff, just lower than a lot of these quarterbacks, maybe sitting in the C range. I don't think that they've done anything above and beyond to make them up here in the top 10. Joe Burrow coming in at, giving him a B at sitting at the 8th spot. He's been high in terms of completion percentage, touchdown percentage, top 10 in terms of interception percentage. His rating has been top 5 in the NFL. The only thing is he's getting hit again this year. 26 in the NFL. He's throwing the ball on target, not throwing much bad balls, and his receivers are about middle of the road in terms of catching or dropping the ball. Solid grade for Joe Burrow. I only think that he can expand once Ja'Marr Chase comes back and he can finish the year off strong, but a B for Joe Burrow. Here are the additional quarterbacks that are a B. As you can see, Geno Smith here. I don't know how you can be a B with these statistics. I'm thinking it's just solely on that sack. They don't like the pressure. This model does not like a quarterback that's under pressure. So, knowing that, probably the highest weighted, stats here are going to be touchdown percentage and then your pressure percentage and your sack percentage. They don't want you getting hit, and they want you putting the ball in the end zone. Because Geno, just by looking at these numbers, should be an A. Even, dare I say, close to an A+. But he has to not get hit. It's going to either get him hurt, or once he's playing really good football teams and they pressure at an elite level, he won't be able to make the throws that he's recently been making. So, as you can see, he's almost top 5 in every statistical category except for those pressure statistics, sack percentage, and pressure percentage. Coming in at number 6 is Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert he's been good this year. He's been good with I would say capital G. He's been good. You can see the drop percentage from his wide receivers. They should be catching the football a little bit more, but he's also not putting it on target like he has in previous years. He hasn't been pressured a lot, and he hasn't been dropped on his ass as much as other quarterbacks. He's actually first in the NFL. So this looks a lot like what Justin Herbert numbers look like. A lot of yards, needs to put the ball in the end zone probably a little bit more for my liking, and his receivers need to catch the football. That's a definite. So a top 5 quarterback right now is Andy Dalton. This was a real surprise. Andy Dalton is actually putting the ball in the end zone a lot. Taking a lot of risks, though, as he's 24th in terms of interception percentage. He's top 10 in terms of passer rating. He has not getting sacked a lot, as he's top 5 in the NFL. Not getting pressured a lot, top 3 in the NFL. He could be a little bit better at putting the ball on target, but he's not making bad throws. So that gets him at top 5 in the NFL in terms of his report card and his grades. Here's to the A quarterbacks. Number 4, Lamar Jackson. He has actually been surprising in terms of his passing this year, as he is top 4 in terms of touchdown percentage. Would really makes that if you can put the ball in the end zone, as you can see just looking up, if you want the cheat sheet, you see that touchdown percentage, and if you're highly ranked in that, there's a high weight correlated to that. Also with passer rating and QBR, as you can see. So he has kept those statistical categories up. He's also hasn't been pressured much, almost cracking the top 10 in terms of not being pressured enough. His wide receivers do need to catch the ball a little bit better for him, but he also has to put it on target a little bit more. As you can see, bad percentage throws are close to worse in the NFL, and on target needs improvement. Coming in at number 3 would be Josh Allen. Josh Allen now, he's second in the NFL in terms of touchdown percentage, but he is making mistakes. He's taking risk out there, as you can see from the interception percentage. He's one of the highest rated quarterbacks, sitting at 7th, and his QBR sitting at 3rd. He's not getting much pressure, and he doesn't get sacked much, as he sits top 10 in terms of being sack percentage. One thing that pops out to me about Josh Allen, though, is that on-target percentage. On-target percentage for Josh Allen. He doesn't get the ball on target as much as people think he does. So he needs to probably improve that accuracy and sort of be a little less aggressive, because you can see it in the interception percentage that, he throws some spotty balls at times. Coming in at number 2 is Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, 6.3 touchdown percentage, making him 3rd in the NFL. He's got the 4th best passer rating in the NFL. He's almost cracking the top 10 in most of the important statistical categories. 2 in terms of QBR, 3rd in terms of adjusted net yards per pass attempt. He's top 10 in terms of being sacked, but he is getting some pressure. His balls have been mostly on target, but he is throwing some bad percentage throws. But he sits at number 2, doing Patrick Mahomes things, getting his A. And finally, number 1 with the A+ would be Tua. Tua's been surprisingly great this year. He's, top 5 in terms of completion percentage, touchdown percentage, protecting the football, and interception percentage. His rating has been 1st in the NFL. His QBR has been 1st in the NFL. He doesn't take much sacks, and he's been getting the ball out and throwing it in terms of adjusted net yards per attempt. He's not pressured much, and most of his balls have been on target, as he's 1st in the NFL in on-target percentage. He has been stellar across the board. Tua has been, when he's in there, he's been great and been above great. So Tua would come in as the number 1 ranked quarterback in the NFL based on this statistical model. Now, next, this is just a brief compare and comparison. I had to spice it up a bit by calling it QB controversy matchups. We're just going to walk through this real quick. So the Jets, basically, their QB controversy would be Joe Flacco versus Zach Wilson. As you can see from this model, you would give the edge to Joe Flacco. So the Jets are actually not going with Flacco, but you can understand Zach Wilson's young, and it's almost like a growing process. Hopefully, he can grow past Joe Flacco. Next would be Mitchell Trubisky versus Kenny Pickett with the Pittsburgh Steelers. As you can see, there's not much of a difference in terms of that pressure percentage. They're being well protected. They need to be more accurate. And with the protection, Mitchell Trubisky has been, I would say, protecting the football a little bit better than Kenny Pickett, and that's probably the reason for his C- instead of a D-. And I say you still go with Kenny because he could possibly grow better than a Mitchell Trubisky. Next would be the New Orleans Saints, which isn't even a controversy at all. I mean, when you see a pressure percentage difference like this on the same NFL football team, I hate to say this, and this is very controversial, and people are going to probably call me an a-hole for saying this. The offensive line or the team wants to play better for this quarterback. That's what that shows me. That an NFL team can go from being 26th in the NFL pressure percentage with one quarterback, and then another quarterback comes in, and then all of a sudden they know how to block. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I just think that there is a guy that they like, a guy that they think can win more, that they want, and they play harder for. Maybe they still play hard for that other guy, but they play harder for the guy that they want. As you can see in New England, Mac Jones has an F. Bailey Zappi sits at a C. Bailey Zappi has been, I would say that this isn't even close. Bailey Zappi has been better in terms of well protected. That's the controversial stat when you're comparing quarterbacks, but I just think that the team wants to play better for Bailey Zappi, and Bailey Zappi has actually been the better quarterback. I think Mac Jones has been the worst quarterback in the NFL, and Bailey Zappi has produced results. And people will say, well, what about the competition he's faced? And it hasn't been as much. Listen, no matter the competition, Mac Jones has not been good at all neither. Whether you're playing the worst team in the NFL, you're playing the best team in the NFL, he hasn't produced the results that Bailey Zappi has. So I think the New England Patriots are going with the wrong quarterback. You can see the Commanders, I would say it really doesn't matter. I think it's just that the intangibles with Taylor Heineke. Taylor Heineke is more, he looks like more of the team player, more of the rah-rah guy, and the guys get up for him. But as you can see from this model, it wouldn't really make much of a difference. I mean, if you're looking at the win percentage, it's a tick up for Taylor Heineke. For the Carolina Panthers, you could see that it would be a tick up if they play PJ Walker. So, either way you slice it, not great quarterbacks, but for the better results, you would get PJ Walker. And finally, for the Dallas Cowboys, which I understand people are going to say it isn't even a controversy. I know, I just put it just because Dak Prescott didn't qualify for the model, but Cooper Rush did. Obviously, Dak Prescott would be the better off quarterback, and his numbers will improve as he gets better. But we put it for the Dallas fans. So finally, we'd like to thank you for watching. This was the midterm grades for each of the quarterbacks that qualified and also some that did not. Just like you to subscribe if you like this content. If you'd like to share it with a friend, please do so. If you also would hit the like button so we could, spread this to many more people and they could see some of the models that I present and some of the data that I present with most sports. So right now we've only started with football, but we will, as football season ends and winds down, we will move into other sports. We'll move into soccer, NHL, NBA, so on and so forth. Please comment down below, whether negative or positively. We welcome all feedback. We welcome all discussion. And finally, again, thank you for watching.